Yeah, exactly. And you touch base on it. We really kind of directly helped plants evolve, like by doing selective breeding, by
For sure.
helping corn grow bigger, watermelon grow differently. Like there's so many plants that because we have had an impact on it, we've helped it evolve much different than how it might have evolved just, in the wild on its own.
R- Right. It's really it's an interesting thing to think about, an interesting concept. And yeah, I think everyone should like just Google like what did corn look like 10,000 years ago? And I think
Yeah.
people will be shocked.
Yeah, you think it, you're like, oh, it's always looked like corn. And then you see it, you're like, that's not corn.
Right. You can
Or
kind
even
of see
stuff.
some kernels in there, but like it's a whole different thing.
It's like, that is not gonna make popcorn, that is not gonna
Nope.
be creamed corn, like, well, the same thing was true for, like, bananas, right? Like, weren't bananas, like, super small or something?
Well, and yeah, and there still are some small bananas, but again, over time, like, and not just us, like other animals would select for the biggest, sweeter ones, and
Yeah,
those are the
yeah,
seeds
that's
that would
true.
get passed on, you know. And then yeah, over time, we have bred different kinds of bananas and selected for different kinds of bananas, and um, now most of the bananas on the market are called Cavendish, and that has been the big one for quite a while. But there's several other kinds. There's still some little ones and some different ones, and then there's plantains, which are closely related, but they're not bananas, but they kind of look like bananas. And so we have like there's a lot of crops out there that depending on where you are, you may never see. Right?
That's true.
It's just an interesting. A lot of them are still very local. They're used by cultures all over the world, and they just haven't made it into our market because we don't use those plants in the same way. But they may be very popular in Asia or South America or somewhere else.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you got my wheels turning about why animals would select the juicier fruit, for example, and why those would thrive. The animals would eat the juicier fruit and then obviously, like, poop out the seeds,
Yep.
and that would grow more, and then the other ones wouldn't get eaten and would die off. Is that correct? Like a
Yeah.
very simplified version?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So like the ones that get spread, they have sort of a competitive advantage. So if you think of it this way, okay, if you have say a plant, whatever plant, let's call it a bean, like a bean
Yeah.
plant. So if the seeds from that bean plant drop right on the ground where that bean plant is growing, they're competing for the exact same resources, right? It's the same plant, they need the same things, they're growing in the same place. And if like no animal ever comes and eats them, if they're never spread, like all the plants grow up in the same place, they're competing for the same resources.
Hmm.
So there's no competitive advantage to any of them. But then you get one that has like these really big beans or peas on it, and this herbivore comes by and is like, "Oh, these are better," and they eat on those and spread those seeds somewhere else. Now, those plants may have a competitive advantage because there's more resources. They're competing with different species. They're maybe outside of their niche, and so they may survive a little longer. Or you have a population of something and a disease comes through and kills 80% of them, but the 20% that are left, say, has the gene in it, some trait in it that makes it resistant to that disease.
Yeah.
So that's the trait that gets passed on, right? Those are the genes that get passed on. That's how we see like resistance in a lot of our weed crops, or not weed crops, but weed plants in our crops. So like we
Hmm.
have pigweed, I don't know, Palmer amaranth, like
Yeah.
you see it called the careless weed, all kinds of other stuff. Like we have some up here on the high plains that is almost completely resistant to Roundup or glyphosate. Because if you go out and you spray, and maybe you spray at a light rate or you don't get good coverage, and there's a few plants there that have some kind of genetic resistance to it, those are the ones that are going to survive to grow more seeds. And that
Mm.
next generation is going to be a little more resistant. And over time, either through bad practice or incomplete spraying or bad rates, whatever it is that we're doing, we select for the strongest ones by applying that pressure to them. And that's just how evolution works. It's kind of an arms race, right? Like you've got uh, a fox and a bunch of slow rabbits and one fast rabbit. The fast rabbit's going to be the one that survives to make more fast rabbits.
Mhm.
Well, then the foxes can't catch those faster rabbits unless there is an especially fast fox, and that's the one that's going to get enough food to survive and move on. So that's how the process works. It's like whoever survives is the one that gets to like reproduce and move on. And so we apply pressure to our systems, and we're selecting for the strongest individuals.
And it keeps going until the rabbit and the fox can go both run like 300 miles an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, and then at some point, yeah, we reach some kinda, like, limit based on the ecosystem or whatever, but yeah, no, exactly, like, it just keeps going, and so, and that's a simplified version, but,
Mhm.
in general, yeah, it's whatever can survive the conditions that it's in or be the most successful in the conditions that it's in is what survives, and so, yeah, if you've got an animal spreading your seed to somewhere that um, maybe you don't have to compete as much. Maybe you can get bigger and taller and make more fruits, or whatever. Those are the ones that get spread around.
Yeah, that makes much more sense. I mean, especially whether it's plants or weeds, because I know that's a lot of people have questions about that. About how do weed resistance, how does that happen? When we develop something to purposely kill a weed, well, how do weeds then build resistance to that? So that makes a lot of sense and makes sense about why we're still trying to figure out weeds and we haven't killed them all. So
Yeah, exactly.
very good analogy. Well, Vikram, this has been awesome geeking out about plants with you. You've got a lot of content out there. If people want to follow you, you're on Twitter. You've also got your podcast. Where else can they go to follow you and stay up to date with all you're doing?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I don't do Facebook a whole lot anymore. It mostly just makes me sad. Um, but you can search for Planthropology, which is just anthropology with a PL on the front. I've had to have like slightly different handles on different platforms because somebody beat me to them on like Twitter.
Mm,
But I think I'm Planthropology Pod on Instagram, and then Planthropology _ on Twitter. You can also get me at the Plant Prof on um, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, even though I don't do anything with it, and TikTok. You can also email me at planthropologypod@gmail.com.
sweet. Well, I'll link all that below, man. I really appreciate it. Always fun to talk plants. I know agriculture kind of has the plant side and the animal side. I'm very much on the plant side. I
Yeah,
enjoy
me
the
too.
plant side much. Well, it was great to virtually meet you. Great to talk plants with you. Best of luck. And I can't wait for the book to come out. Good luck. I'm going to have to buy that really early before I have kids. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it.